2 people have been executed in Singapore for drug offences, according to a journalist in close contact with one of the prisoners' families. As the number of executions carried out hits double digits for the first time in years, the city-state is facing increasing international criticism. In April, authorities executed a mentally disabled Malaysian man for entering Singapore with about 3 tablespoons of heroin. The case elicited pleas for clemency from the United Nations, the European Union and celebrities around the world. The UN Human Rights Council this week urged Singapore to immediately halt all scheduled executions, of which there are currently 4. All the prisoners killed this year, the most since 2008, have been convicted of drug offences. For more on capital punishment in Singapore, our reporter Ryan Ho Kilpatrick spoke with Singaporean journalist and activist Kirsten Han.
Why is Singapore executing this number of people, and historically, how unusual is it?
I've been hearing from the families who have been hearing it from their loved ones on death row is that there is a sense that death row is, as they say, too full. So what they're telling their families is that the authorities are keen to move forward with the executions because they need the cells and they expect that there will be more people who will be sentenced to death in the near future. So they were trying to clear this backlog.
The United Nations Human Rights Committee this week condemned Singapore for the executions, calling them deplorable. How have the local authorities responded to this international criticism?
The government's view will be that, this is what we decide for Singapore. We have the right to decide our own policy, and anyway, this policy works, and they claim that it does deter the drug trade and keep Singapore safe. And they get away with this argument because locally there's so much propaganda about the war on drugs and how it's necessary. And UN comment does not get space in Singapore. So, for instance, I've not seen it reported in the local media at all.
As you said, this is part of a bigger war on drugs in Singapore. But how effective have the executions been in deterring drug abuse or drug-related offences?
There's no evidence that we know of, and certainly around the world, a lot of research has also pointed out that there's no evidence that the death penalty is effective against drugs in deterring drugs and the drug trade. It's very unclear how they're supposed to do that when the government is also so opaque. We only know that executions are about to happen because families get the execution notice and then they tell us, and then we make it public with the family's consent. If not, the government doesn't announce that an execution is happening, the local media doesn't report on it, and it's only when they are pressed by media queries that they might issue a statement to confirm an execution.
You've been working closely with the families of death row inmates and closely following court proceedings. What is it like for the people involved in this process?
This year in particular, when the executions are happening so fast, it's really traumatic for the families because one execution notice doesn't just affect one prisoner and one family, it affects all of them. When they see someone get an execution notice, it makes them worry for their own loved ones. Or if they are a family whose loved one has already been hanged, it just brings that painful memory back. The families are really struggling at this time. They're very anxious and fearful. But the prisoners inside are in their solitary cells dealing with this and seeing, people that they've known for a long time, people in the cell next to them get taken away and never coming back, and they have to deal with that themselves.